Hi, it's Carly McAvoy. I want to work some word problems that involve mixed numbers. And I'm not saying if they're addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, they could be anything. They just have mixed numbers in them. So this one says Bailey worked 3 1/5 hours before work and 2 2/3 hours after lunch. I think this should be at before lunch and after lunch. How many hours did she work altogether? And how many hours does she have left in her 8-hour day? So she's come in and worked, and then she went out back and worked. And how much does she have left? First, we need to figure out how many hours she's worked altogether. Would that be an addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division problem? Well, when we want to combine things up, we're going to add. So we're going to add 3 1/5 to 2 2/3. I'm going to find a common denominator for 5 and 3, which is 15, and rewrite those as 15ths. Remember, 5 times 3 is 15, so 1 times 3 is the new numerator. And then 3 times 5 is 15, so 2 times 5 is 10. Now we're adding those together. 3 plus 10 is 13 15ths, and 3 plus 2 is 5. So here's our first answer. She has worked 5 and 13 15ths hours so far. The first question. Second question is how many more hours does she have left in her 8-hour day? So we're going to take 8 hours and we're going to subtract what she's done and see what's left. Now we can't just drop the 13 15ths down because this is actually 0 15ths. And so we're going to have to do some rearranging things here to make this work. The way I like to think about it is 8 becomes 7 plus 1 and 0 15ths. And so what is that? Well, 0 15ths, 1 times 15 is 15, plus 0 is just 15. So I have 7 and 15 15ths minus 5 and 13 15ths. And now I'm ready to subtract. 15 minus 13 is 2, and 7 minus 5 is 2. So she has 2 hours and 2 15ths left. This is what she has left, and this is what she has worked so far. And those were the two questions that we were asked in that problem. How many hours has she worked and what she got left? Okay, so that's that one. Had to add and subtract. Okay, second problem. Adolfo used 3 1/2 quarts of red paint, 5 1/3 quarts of black paint, and 2 3/4 quarts of yellow paint on his mural. If he pays $15 per quart for his paint, what was the monetary value of the paint he used? Okay, so I need to figure out how much paint he used altogether first, right? So again, that's an addition problem. We have 2, 3, and 4. What's the common denominator for 2, 3, and 4? Well, it's 12. It's the first number they go into. So I'm going to just write this way. I'm going to do 12s for the first one. What is half of 12? Because this is a half. Half of 12 is 6, right? Think of this as 2 times 6 is 12, so 1 times 6 is 6. Or think about it as, well, 6 twelfths is equal to 1/2. The second one, 5, again, I'm going to write that with a 12 under there. What's 1/3 of 12? It's 4. So this is going to be 4 over 12. Think of that as 3 times 4 is 12, and 1 times 4 is 4. What I want you to do is sometimes you can do things in your head without doing a lot of calculations. You know half of 12 is 6. So that's something you can do. Maybe you can't do it in your head, then you do it on paper. No shame. All right, and then we're going to add all those together in a minute. Over here I have 3/4. Well, I'm going to say 4 times 3 is 12, so 3 times 3 is 9. Now that I have all that figured out, I'm ready to add those together. Remember, the common denominator stays the same, and I have 10, 19, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So he used 10 and 19 twelfths, but what that really looks like is 10 plus 19 twelfths, which looks like 10 plus 1, because 12 goes into 19 one time, and 7 twelfths, which means he used 11 and 7 twelfths quarts of paint. And the monetary value is 15. Well, how do I figure out then $15 per quart, I should say? How do I figure that out? Well, I'm going to take 11 and 7/12 and multiply it times 15. First, I need to change this into a improper fraction. 11 times 12 is 132 plus 7, 139. You don't have to do that in your head. You can do it on a calculator. 11 times 12 plus 7 is 139 over 12. And then 15 is 15 over 1. We can do some canceling here. 3 goes into 12 4 times. It goes into 15 5 times. And then we can multiply across. 139 times 5 is 695, and 4 times 1 is 4. Now, if I want to change that into a mixed number, let's do that. I don't know if this calculator will actually do that. Maybe it will, but let's just do it the old-fashioned way. 695 divided by 4 is 173 and 75 cents. That's the monetary value, right? If we just divided that out, what would that look like as a fraction? 175, 7.75 is 3/4. You know that's 3/4, right? 75 cents is 3/4. So that's what it would look like as a fraction, and this is what it would look like as a decimal. So $173 and 3/4. All right, so that's what the monetary value. And that one we had to multiply, we had to add and then multiply. Okay, Jordan was 53 and 3/4 inches tall in 2016, and he's 55.5 inches tall now. What was the change in his height? What operation do we need to do to figure that out? Well, the change is talking about a subtraction. And we want to make sure we don't get a negative number, so we want to put the greater number on top and subtract the lesser number, which is this. Okay, well, I want to change this into a common denominator. I know that 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4 because 2 is half of 4. And I don't need to change the second one because it already had that. But the problem here is I can't take 3 away from 2 unless I do some rearranging. I'm going to think of that as 54 plus 1 and 2/4. And what does that look like then? That looks like 54. 1 times 4 is 4 plus 2 is 6/4. And then I still have my 53 and 3/4 here. So 6 minus 3 is 3, and 54 minus 51 is 1. So it looks like the change in his height was 1 3/4 inches. All right. And the last one, Griselda normally uses 4.5 cups of flour for her cookie recipe, but she needs to make 2.5 batches. How many cups of flour will she need? Well, she's multiplying her recipe 2.5 times. So she's going to have 4.5 times 2.5. Then I'm going to change that to improper fractions. So 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1 is 9. So she has 9 halves. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5 halves. Is there anything I can cross cancel here? No, I can't. So I'm just going to multiply straight across. That's going to give me 45 over 4. And then I'm going to change that into a mixed number because if it asks for it. Always look to see what your calculation asks for in the class or on the computer, whatever you're doing. 4 goes into 45 11 times with 1 left over. So that's 11 and 1/4. Many calculators will do this conversion for you. So if you don't know, if you want to use your calculator for that, I would certainly be fine with it. Okay, have a fantastic day. We'll see you next.